As a foremost, a very apologize for the slight delay in our programming to start the ground, but I believe that it goes on will be able to catch up. The theme for this year's annual leaders gathering is building resilient lives and reimagining communities. And the theme is inspired by the different challenges that we continue to face, both as members of the African network, but also increasingly as citizens of the world. To catch up with our programming today, I would like to introduce Mr. Konrad, who is the board chairperson of the African Institute, to give brief remarks, because I understand Karl was supposed to be with us in other days. So I'll allow you to make a brief remarks. I will then introduce the team and my panel. So Karl, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kwezi, and greetings to all of you. Distinguished guests, fellow board members, AWAL and the team, greetings and thank you for coming together to celebrate the work of the young people that make us grow. 3 years ago, when Nshuti, our chair emeritus, spoke to me about the work of the Institute, I thought about what I could do as an African born in the West to educate myself about youth transformation in East Africa. It has been an extraordinary journey to observe the talent behind the ideas that shape Leo Africa Institute. Over the past 3 years, AWAL, Kwezi, the team and supporters across the world have pooled their resources to nurture the mustard seed that the Institute was. In the Holy Scriptures, we are reminded that with just a tiny amount of faith in Him, nothing is impossible. And the Institute's journey exemplifies the faith of invisible and visible hands in the endless possibilities embedded in the next generation. The Institute reminds us that as though the mustard seed is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches. We are here today, perched on the branches of the Institute, each branch representing the accomplishment of a young leader. The Africa we have from our mothers who chose to educate us in the belief that we will do the same for the next generation. Thus, this year's theme, Building Resilient Lives and Imagining Communities, sits at the heart of who we are as individuals in our faith in the fact that humble beginnings are a head start, often dismissed, but with a DNA of resilience. The continent we call home might seem inconsequential, but it has grown to be the reservoir of youth for the world. It is youth's imagination that defines the path forward. And it is when we share the belief that tomorrow will find us farther than today, that we start to accept our role as catalysts of benefit to others. But for our imagination to continue to flourish, we must drink at the tap of knowledge, respect, and patience to fortify us on the road less traveled ahead. In the absence of this constant search for the work of strengthening communities, we become loose examples of individual success in the desert. Yet, the oasis of possibilities can be connected with shared humanity and imagination. The influence that we have must be to uplift everyone as a promise embedded in the master seed and the gift of generosity from our mothers. The past year has been a time of appreciation of the work ahead in the midst of the challenges that the global pandemic reminded us of. I am confident that Leo Africa Institute plans outlined by AWAL and his team, which were approved by the board, will confirm that it is in the collective that imagination and resilience breed human progress. Leo Africa Institute produces branches and bear fruits. It is becoming a splendid cedar. Youth of every kind will nest in it. We find shelter and shade as they embrace their role as enablers of prosperity for the communities we imagine. As we look forward to the conversation at the annual leaders gathering, I'm encouraged by the possibility that our collective engagement will bring, from small to large, embedded in the surprising nature of growth. As I close, allow me to share this brief exchange from the book Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. Is this the way to the celestial city? You are heading in the right direction. How far do we have to go? It is too far for any, except those who shall arrive there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was very wonderful and very well. I was seeing Judith proudly, but I'm sure many people in attendance today see a bunch of class. We look forward to seeing you in Kampala, and we want to share the evidence you spend with us as one starts. But give it to me the way you think. So briefly, I'll talk about the annual leaders gathering 2021. So the technology keeps explaining, but so over the next 3 days, in Denver, we have made physical in Kampala, and virtually through platforms like Zoom, reflect on what it means, to be a resilient individual, what it means to be resilient society, and what Reimagining Communities. An example that I'll share. Using the example of Master C, coming from Uganda about 20 years ago, our president wrote his first biography also in Master C. So I'm sure we bring the central wisdom, and we appreciate that. So I'll jump right into and also the other issue is marking 10 years early next year. And over the last 10 years, what we've been able to do has been as a result of collaborations and partnerships. And key to those partnerships, I think, has been the shared the ability of Africans to achieve great things so they can come together, work, and collaborate. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my panelists representing the key partners that are used to as well over the years. I have also on screen here Judith Atim, she's the program officer of the Konrad Dedo Foundation. I also have Mr. Dedo, who's from the Segal Foundation, I also have joining us from, I believe, Kampala, is Ofungi, he's from the Concordia, CEED Concordia, CEED Uganda, International. And last but not least, I'm also joined by Asayo. Catherine, you see on my screen here, I believe you with us. She's from Stanbic, Uganda. Now, I'll make some very brief remarks about the minute or so to set the whole role of our panel conversation, and maybe my panelists can help expand on this speaking. Of course, for our audience that is joining us virtually, they should be wondering what does resilience in this year. We used to say 2020 is the year of the pandemic, but in the beginning 2021, we say the year of the pandemic and beyond. What does resilience in individual organizations, but also resilience in terms of organizations coming together to do great things? What does that mean? But also this sense of emerging communities. What does it mean to individual people? So I'd like to start with you, Judith. What does resilience mean to you at Konrad Adenauer, and what do you imagine communities being? Judith, if you're speaking, you're muted. Just unmute yourself.
I hope I'm clear enough. Am I audible enough? Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kwezi, and special thanks to the Leo African Institute for convening this annual leaders gathering. As the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, we are very proud of this cooperation and partnership that we are having with Leo Africa. Allow me, Mr. Carl Manland, to also extend my gratitude to you for the words of wisdom that you just shared with us in your keynote. It is definitely worth reflecting upon. Well, today's theme comes at a critical point in our lives, and it definitely calls for a lot of introspection by each one of us. When we talk about resilience, and especially resilience within today's context of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're definitely asking ourselves how fast we can recover and pick ourselves up from the many challenges that the pandemic has dragged us through. It could have been the loss of income as a result of unemployment, or the collapse of a business, loss of valuable academic time, mental health challenges, and other personal challenges and battles that we fought quietly as individuals. But now, with more and more people getting vaccinated around the world, we see a glimmer of hope slowly returning. And now we are also confronted with a daunting task of rebuilding, not just as an organization, but we're looking at this from the perspective of people. An organization does not exist in a vacuum. An organization exists and thrives because of the people and the networks it works with. We also ask ourselves this other question: how do we rebuild? The pandemic, of course, ushered in a wave of challenge, awakened us to the realities that the world has not done much citizens go through. Take an example: access to healthcare, including the question of who can access the COVID-19 vaccine.
Women understand a lot from it. About to you, but when it comes to the time, Dedo, the release for resilience, imaginability. That's what we speak about spacing. If you know, it's really not imagined spacing. So please.
Thank you, Kwezi. And I wanted to say first, hello and good morning to my fellow panelists, and also to take a moment to take in what Carl has just graced us as we started. And my third message is a big congratulations on behalf of the Segal family and team to the Leo Africa community for your 10-year stories of impact behind your belt. Well done. This theme resonates very much with me and with us for many reasons. We are a foundation that has its origins in New York City area, with 100% of our operations and funding going to Africa, and going to African-led entrepreneurs, visionaries, and leaders. We choose to use flexible and multi-year funding to serve and to contribute. And coming back to the theme of today, it's been 10 years of our work doing this. And from this basic realization that only 2% of all international development and humanitarian funding goes to locally led African entrepreneurs, and this is a big problem. So we exist to change that paradigm, and there is no building without resource, and community is because there is shared values and because there is shared resources. So this theme is really particular for me in this particular moment, because I think it's an invitation for all of us to rethink the things that we think we know, and particularly around what does resilience mean, and what does community mean. And it's very evident that who you give money, you give them power. And our work is really to increase the space and the percentage of funding that goes to African entrepreneurs and visionaries. And this will augment the idea of self-determination on this continent. And with self-determination comes resilience, and with resilience comes thriving communities, and with thriving communities comes like a better future and an Africa that we want. So I want to approach our time together here, sort of reflecting a little bit more on different ways we think about rebuilding and we think about community from a resource standpoint, from a place of dignity and from a place of balance, and which I think is also also at the heart of what drives Leo Africa. We're thinking about leadership. We're thinking about sustainable, responsible, engaging leadership. And all this comes from who gets the funding, who gets the funding gets to build, and who gets to build gets to determine. I couldn't commend you for hosting this conversation and this theme, particularly now where the world is thinking about the world post-pandemic, where we have seen where value is actually compared to where we thought it was, and where we have seen communities really pulling their resources together to save, but also to imagine the future. And the last piece that I wanted to talk about is Reimagining Communities has taken a different ampleur, as we would say. I'm sitting in Malawi. The summit is originated in Uganda. 2 years ago, it would have been unlikely to think about hosting people at different spaces and geographies across the continent or across the world. So Reimagining Communities now with technology is absolutely a beautiful idea of possibilities that we could and should continue to build on, thinking about communities away from our only geography, places where we're born, places where we work, places that we know, to really reimagining possibilities that technology offers us. Thanks, Kwezi. Over to you.
Thank you. Also like to say, especially about the distribution of not really charity, but support natural work, especially coming from the Western world. If you really have that to speak, with the main destination of aid and kinds of support, in essence, it's actually not speak. And I rightly mentioned we see one of our job sense with even support available on the world. So definitely that's something that sure collaboration with the partners that is plumbing on also talking about organizing the community and work, something that we definitely can explore more. Speaking about international collaborations and partnerships, at this point I'd like to bring in who I have here. Luke, are you live? Would you get the director of CEED? Tell us about CEED and Concordia and how it was involved in parts of collaboration between other students in Uganda and Canada. Luke.
Thank you, Kwezi. Thank you, my previous panelists. And thank you to Mr. Carl for the opening remarks. The theme today is really timely, especially in our context, in the context of CEED, Concordia, in our surrounding and in the communities in which we operate. Building resilient lives in the time of crisis is really timely, and as well how we extend, how we revolutionize our programming around the communities to adapt with the pandemic. Over the years, and currently we adapted one of our strong projects, which is the Tech Education Project. And we had as well to rethink and strategize on how we are going to especially make the Canadian students part of this whole program. So we really had to engage them to partake in this program virtually, as well with physical and virtual form within Uganda. And majority of the recipients, as you know, were the girl child. Hello, Kwezi? No? Kwezi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, we can hear you.
Yes, so over time we had to change our programming as well to suit the girl child, because again we realized due to the circumstances at hand, the girl child was again facing immense problems within the community, and which was critical to us was access to education. And we used the venture of enabling them access hard and soft skills with our Tech ED program, with our counterparts in Canada, where we extended this programming to them. In specific context, again, to our community, who are our large recipients of our programming. We had to adapt and rethink as well in terms of how we extend our models to our different communities, especially in Gulu, from which we operate in. As you know, CEED Uganda is celebrated 15 years, and CEED Uganda was started by the same founder as Leo Africa, who is Mr. Awelo Wihanganyi. And back then, in 2016, this was a students' project that resulted into, because the region was had suffered and was coming out of a civil war conflict. And over time, the goal was to build skills around youth from within the community while extending an opportunity for students in Concordia especially, but also furthermore students within Uganda. So over time, the program, the institution itself was as a result, from hardships, from other necessities that were being faced by the community. So it was as a result of, uncertainties that CEED. Yes, Kwezi. Hello, Kwezi.
Can you hear me? Okay. Let's proceed, please. Look, I was listening to you, then you dropped off at some question.
Yes, Kwezi, I was concluding that both organizations share a similar vision. One, that both organizations were started by a similar co-founder who is Awelo Wihanganyi. And for specific context for CEED was started as a result because the region was going through a civil war conflict at that time, especially during the insurgency within our context. And therefore, the organization was started to provide a professional internship and volunteering experience for students from Canada and the youth especially, and the community within Gulu in that context. So back to you, Kwezi.
Thank you, Luke. As we decided, what would be the starting bar for institutions like Square and invested in non-profit work? So what attracted the Stanbic bar to supporting the kind of work that the YELP Institute does and programs like the Reimagining Communities project?
Thank you, Kwezi. Good morning, my fellow panelists, and thank you, Carl, for always your wise and encouraging words. It's always something that takes a year to sleep and digest. Thank you so much, and thanks, Awel and Leo Africa, for convening this. So our theme is building resilient lives and reimagined communities. So at Stanbic Bank, I feel like we have already been doing that. When COVID-19 came into the picture, we're already skilling children between the ages of 12 to 24 years to be able to sustain themselves even outside the four-wall classrooms. Because as national schools, what we do, we encourage the young people to invest in themselves and gain ideas and skills that they're able to run as individuals without being able to only be in a classroom kind of setting. And as Stanbic, if our pipeline is for the future generation, we start, what is 80% of the youth are below 30 years of age. So what we do is to focus on that age bracket so that we are able to target. Because how do we build a resilient community? how do we focus on future generations without without preparing them to bank with us? So over to you, Kwezi. Thank you.
Thank you. And my next question, I think I will throw it to randomly at the panel, so I think you can go ahead and help us. You all talked about resilience in different ways, from different vantage points, just in the way you work. But something that I want to interrogate further is this idea of community, because it's been challenged the most in the last 2 or so years. Prior to the pandemic, we had across the globe what you consider democratic progression and the rise of borders. That really started the art of community, if you understand community in the political sense. That here you had movements and individuals that were rising to the top by exploring our most basic fears about pressure on strangers. How do we imagine communities in an age like this? Well, there seems to be more that divides us than brings us together. Dedo, I see you reaching to say something.
Kwezi, we are having a hard time hearing you. The chatter, the questions as well.
Okay, let me try to rephrase the question. Okay, so I was talking about imagined communities, and I was saying that in the age we're living in, there seems to be more that divides us than brings us together, whether you talk about resurgence of nationalism on the global stage, or civil anxiety. Imagined communities necessary in such a way. That was my question. I don't know if you get me now. Did you get the question?
Kwezi, unfortunately, the reception is really shaky.
So I'll try and rephrase the question. Or if I don't have the question,
And yes, Kwezi,
okay, I have to say something. Yes, go ahead.
can we just have the questions maybe typed, or because there's so much feedback that we can't get you clearly.
Oh, so I was assistant to go to you.
Yeah.
Someone should be sending in the shares. I will ask them. Responsibly also was last one question. We speak about closing down. Tell her also what you feel overall. Let's ask that question to us. About money and things like say. We figure out just when we start to go down, telling the family we should go to more, just tell them, go lives of people. They really want to grow some. We come out as mediated, we need to find hopefully that knowledge of religion. It's a matter of just continuing this.
Kwezi, I I dropped off earlier before I had concluded what I was saying. I don't know if it's okay for me to use this time as we wait to get the question clear. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So about, I was still talking about, of course, all the obvious challenges that COVID posed, and then getting back to the theme of building resilient lives and imagined communities. When Benedict Anderson developed this concept in 1983, he was looking at qualities that imagined communities must have. He said they were limited, they were community, which is of course a collection of people with aspirations. So from where I sit, I'd say in our present times, would say perhaps that our imagined communities are boundless, especially with the growth of digital technology, like Dedo earlier said. But again, we also ask ourselves, as we imagine communities, what are our aspirations? We, of course, work with communities and partners that help us to realize our goals and objectives. One of them being Leo Africa Institute. One of them being the Leo Africa Institute, of course, among the many others, because we believe that we need to create a strong impact, and we cannot do this alone. We need partnerships. So when we partner with people like Leo, with other actors in, for example, political spaces, we work with young people, experts in academic spaces and scholars and so on and so forth. We value these partnerships because we understand that our partners are critical players in helping us as a foundation, as CAS, to realize our objectives, key of which is to advance liberal democratic values, human rights, and dignity for all. That's what I'd like to say.
That is a beautiful way to put it, Judith, dignity for all. And maybe we could actually continue our conversation here if we may. I think that what you just talked about in terms of dignity for all is something that has been really lacking on how our government and how funders and how the private sector really thinks about communities. It's sometimes is this nebulous idea, but not something not really concrete. And what we have seen with COVID is the need to really invest where we stand. Where is the infrastructure? Where is the process? What is the resource that allows communities to solve their own problems, to build their own idea of dignity? That's what I really think that we continue to center ourselves around the lessons of COVID, but of the things that we have ignored in the past. And we see now platforms like Leo Africa and the leaders that are behind it and the community that is creating, really paying attention to this and really keeping the momentum running around this particularly. I'm curious how you're seeing that look going on with your own institution.
Yeah, thank you, Dedo. You raise a really critical centerpiece, especially around the area we are discussing, which are the communities. One other area we really also have to focus on is how, you know, especially for our side areas of operation, why we entered into this contract of obligation with Leo is that we are centered in northern Uganda, Gulu. So we cannot reach in areas, you know, beyond that. If we could, this best works out, you know, with partnerships. With other partners on board, with Leo especially. But again, it's harnessing our areas of strength of collaboration. Leo Africa Institute is grounded and instilled in areas of leadership. And if we are looking at a partner who can, you know, execute that mandate critically beyond our area of operation, then it's Leo Africa Institute. Then in matters of community engagement as well, we refocus and we strengthen our energy, especially around that area, especially also around youth empowerment and community engagement, which is our main focus. So that more we enter into how I would call it a social contract between two organizations where we extend our different mandate. You also touched on areas of quality leadership because these leaders are as a result of our communities. It's the community that, you know, votes them into the spaces of leadership. And the area also we should focus on is the quality of leadership, you know, that is amongst us. And therefore, of course, with the work of the Institute, with the Emerging Leadership Project, and again, the Huduma project of which I'm a fellow, the goal here is to, you know, instill a discipline of service, you know, service above self, service delivery within various spaces of leadership. So that is a call from which we can rechannel our conversation around, and then we expand on that. Thank you. Back to you, Don, and back to the fellow panelists. Dedo.
You're brilliant.
Thank you, Luke.
The idea of community, of curating a community of creative collaborators to reach our size, impact and scale is what you, Luke, are talking about, and why you partner with Leo Africa. Catherine, maybe over to you. Where do you see resilience and reimagination and radical imagination in your involvement with Leo Africa, and what sort of lessons others like ourselves or anyone who is part of this summit can pull?
Thanks, Dedo. Thanks, Luke, and thanks, Judith. So I think partnerships is the way to go. COVID has really proved more than ever that if we're ever going to solve anything, or this pandemic and anything, we have to partner in whichever way. So as a bank, we have partnered in so many projects. We have the education projects, we have the maternal health, we have the tree planting, we have the Tasso Wutonde that deals with waste management. And you spoke about quality leadership. And as a YELP Fellow of 2019, as a quality leader, one of the values we should have is empathy. And if you're going to ensure that everyone, all the kids get to have access to education, as a thoughtful leader, what do we need to cut on our technology? Taxes. For example, in Uganda, if the internet taxes are being hiked on the data taxes, then how will kids be able to access education? That means there will be different level of students who have access to education, and a big chunk of them won't be having access to education. So how do we ensure that in these emerging communities that we're trying to build, how do our leaders think? How do we ensure that they are having that bit of empathy to have quality for everyone? Thank you. That's it for me.
You're bringing an excellent point around new values that should characterize, that we should seek into in our leaders, around empathy, around inclusion, around belonging, around vulnerability, to not have all the solutions, but to seek those solutions and ideas from the communities that they're serving. And last week, there was the Intra-Africa Trade Summit in Durban. The most conversations were centered around this idea of connecting Africa, on creating infrastructure, on creating the technology, on creating a conducive environment for Africans and for goods and services to circulate within Africa. That's what I imagine when we're talking about resilient communities, communities that are able, if we take Africa as a community, to trade and to exchange. How do you see, Judith, as similar to what this microcosm of Leo Africa, bringing private sector, bringing foundations and bringing governments together? What are the possibilities to scale this that you're seeing that we could center ourselves around as we go through these 2 days of a summit? What are the different examples that your institution with the bank are putting forward to continue to connect Africa, to continue to build resources across Africa, that leaders that are following can be inspired of or can also be part of?
Before that, thank you so much, Dedo. I really love the conversation you're doing, and I'm actually taking notes. Yes, before Judith, you can maybe answer Mr. Dedo. The session is about to end like around 12 p.m., but I'm giving each like 2 minutes to give us the thoughts about the theme, and also maybe you can take chance to answer, maybe to collaborate, answer for Mr. Dedo. So kindly let me give you 2 minutes each to give us your thoughts about the theme as we are coming to the conclusion of the session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Arafat. I think I should go first because I'm the one who is dropping off a lot. So if I'm to give my thoughts about the theme, building resilient lives and emerging communities, like I said earlier, when we talk about resilience, of course, we're looking at picking ourselves up, building stronger, building better. Lessons have already been learned over the last 2 years, not just for CAS as a foundation, but because it's not just been our lesson alone, it's been everybody's lesson, you see. So where people had, and we believe that as an organization, yes, we do have our own aspirations, but we also work with partners who have their aspirations, and there has to be a meeting point somewhere. Are the aspirations of the people we work with aligned with our own? Do they advance, for example, issues of governance, liberal democracy? Because at the core of it all, at the core of resilience, I believe if you do not have strong institutions in place, if you do not have institutions, partners, and people that can push forward policies that work for all, policies that work for vulnerable people, that empower, promote principles like equity, then you are not yet doing much. You can't achieve, there's only so much that you can do. And that is why we invest a lot in people, institutions, and partnerships, mostly. And we are very interested in working with young people. You cannot talk about the future and sustainability without involving young people as part of that conversation. They are the torchbearers, not just of tomorrow, but also of today. So it's very critical that we involve them in our activities. We shape their thinking, especially in the spaces of politics and leadership. Because if that foundation is not strong enough, you are not going to have torchbearers today and tomorrow who can make informed decisions, who can make policies that are based on evidence, policies that address the needs of people on the ground. That is where we come in.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the insight, Judith. It's helpful. Yeah. Of course, all your activities you're always doing is empower and help young people to make a meaningful community that we imagine. Thank you so much. Madam Catherine, can I give you 2 minutes to also give us your insight about the session and how we can help develop an imagined community? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arafat. Just like I said before, I think at Stanbic Bank, we're already building the resilience among our young people. Can you hear me?
Yes,
can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we're already building resilience among our young people. And just like 80% of the Ugandan population is below 30 years, that's where our major focus is as a bank. And you can't speak about resilience when you're living at the big percentage of the population, when you're not speaking to it. So what do we do as a bank? We ensure that we give them seed capital. We encourage them to come up with their own business sustainable ideas, because as we speak about resilience, we are talking about also, we bring in the sustainability of the projects in line with maybe the sustainable development goals. So as a bank, resilience is a very core key, business continuity is a very core key, and in sustainability is a very core key. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. This is very good, very good. As a youth, I think I can feel the impact, because previously I've always seen your bank trying to support the young people, the projects, even have because I'm into tech. We always have those seminars where you bring in developers, support them, their startups. So I understand what you're trying to tell us, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Mr. Luke, do you have a word for us before closure?
Thank you, Arafat, and thank you. Yes, thank you, Arafat, and thank you to the previous speakers. Yes, I would touch base on areas of collaboration with Leo on enhancing better service delivery to our communities, and later I'll end with our expectations. Ultimately, our areas of refocus have been through supporting different entrepreneurship groups within our areas of focus in Gulu, and especially these are youth groups we normally support. So we have currently trained over 90 entrepreneurship groups, and we are going to support them with startup capital, which is a capital accorded to them to help them, mitigate the challenges that have been caused by COVID. And also in looking in areas, at other areas such as the environment, which is very critical and which affects all of us as a community. We ought to provide a platform to different organizations, but also different entrepreneurs in Gulu, and also work with collaborative partners, to address the drastic effects of climate change, which we already started in 2016 up to date. And also, I would like also to end around our different expectations that we as an institution have for this gathering. Ultimately, one is to enable us coordinate, and tell our own stories. Coordinate in a sense that we collectively combine all our efforts, CEED reaches in communities, Leo and the Institute is strong in leadership. So we appreciate each other's voices and collaborate in that nature. And the second one would be, let's all be accountable for our actions. As we converge and as we partake in this year's annual leaders gathering, we ought to, share and build on our actions and our works for next year, so that when we arrive in the same space next year, we are sharing experiences and collaborating more in that regard. So back to you, Arafat.
Thank you so much for the insight, Mr. Luke. For those who are actually watching and they keep hearing CEED, I would like to spell a CEED. CEED is CEED. That is the CEED. He means CEED in case you want to check it out, what they do, how they help our youth, how they collaborate between Canada and Uganda. That's what you're going to find out. Thank you so much for the insights. I really appreciate. Now to you, Mr. Dedo, a word, please. Thank you.
Investing where we stand. This is why Segal Family Foundation new commitment to Leo is really important, to really expand boundaries of what an interconnected network of leaders across this continent can do, but mostly continue to ask ourselves, how are the total sum of the things that we do foster the idea of a youthful leadership, an inspired and consistent leadership, not as a buzzword. This is old. 10 years ago, people talked about investing in young people, but now can we really keep a pulse on the ground and really point where are the initiatives that are fostering this idea for young people to take charge? Because you know what? Young people today are not asking for permission nor for forgiveness. We have to change how we work and really be partners in really practical and pragmatic ways. Our foundation, Segal Family, and the team are really excited to be part of Leo's next 10 years of impact.
All right. All right, thank you so much. Like I said again, I would love to spell what Dedo belongs to, the Segal Foundation. If you want to check it out, it's SEGAL, Segal Family Foundation. If you're out there and you're a young person, you are youth, kindly check out the activities, because they are here to empower us, the young people. They're here to empower us, and they are doing whatever they can to make the future a bright one for us, and building that resilient community we imagine. Thank you so much, and apologies for the technical glitches we've had in our session. Our next session begins at 2:45 East African time, 2:45 p.m. East African time. It would be better. It would be also as interactive as this one. And I would love to all of you to attend, and we share insights and yes, for us, the youth and the young people. Thank you so much, and looking forward to more conversations in the future. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everyone who is on the call, and I appreciate. Have yourself a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.